the Crypt.
Hello, boys and ghouls. Happy Father's Day, and welcome to episode 47 of Dads from the Crypt, the Tales from the Crypt podcast. My name is Jason. I am joined by Mando.
Hi.
And Jody's having technical difficulties, so we gave a night off. But to help us celebrate all fathers, we have Joan and Jaime from the Horror Dads podcast. Welcome to the show, guys.
What's up,
Hey,
guys?
thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Hey, we're recording this the week before Father's Day, but it's coming out on Father's Day, so happy pre-Father's Day.
Yeah, happy Father's Day to you guys as well.
And happy Father's Day to everyone and our listeners and other people who act in a fatherly role to children. We appreciate you all. All right, so
or if you
tell us
have
about
a father or father figure too, like happy Father's Day to those people out there too, all your loved ones.
Mhm. All right, Joan and Jaime, tell us about Horror Dads.
Oh man. So we've got a podcast called Horror Dads, and we've been doing it a few years now. But I guess the core and the theme of what we cover and what we do and what we talk about is really kind of juggling being a professional working dad and having young children and living within communities that maybe things like horror aren't super popular and super understood. And we kind of discuss concepts like hey, it's okay to be a working professional and a parent and also have children and also love horror. Like it's not a big deal. So we talk about a lot of things related to that, but we do episodes where we focus on our favorite of certain subgenres of horror. So we'll cover our favorite films related to certain subgenres like slashers or favorite pool party horror movies is one of the ones we had. We just did an episode on our favorite horror television shows, and oftentimes we do interviews. We'll bring in folks involved within the community, like artists, directors, actors, and we'll do interviews too. But Jaime, what did I miss, man?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. We like to have creators in the horror industry on the show. So if you're a candle maker, the candles are horror centric. If you are an illustrator, if you're a director or in film in any way, we want to have you on and talk, about your experience in the industry. And yeah, it's just the whole show really focuses around our balance with maybe wanting to watch a horror movie or expose our kids to a horror movie, but always like wondering, is this appropriate? Are they the right age? So our show is kind of about that internal balance.
Sweet. All right, well, thanks for coming on, guys. When you talked about your favorite horror TV shows, was Tales from the Crypt on that list?
It was, yeah, it was on my list.
Yeah.
Oh, good, because I've been really awkward of the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
why don't you,
and it would have been inappropriate.
What's Tales from the Crypt? Yeah.
Yeah. So whenever we have a guest, we like to ask, what was your first experience with Tales from the Crypt? How did you get into it? What's your favorite episodes? All that. So I want you to share.
Yeah, go ahead,
Yeah,
Jaime.
so mine was, I remember my parents had HBO only at my mom's house. My dad did not. So when I was at my mom's house, I would always sneak into, I think she only had it in her bedroom at the time. So I would have to, if she was doing laundry or something, that's when I could slip in to her bedroom, turn on HBO, turn on Tales from the Crypt. And we were talking about this on our TV episode that Tales from the Crypt episodes are so like adult. So sometimes I'd get in there as a kid and be like, here I am, there's a crypt keeper, that was fun. And then you get to the meat of the episode and you're like, oof, this is heavier than I wanted this to be.
Yeah.
Not all of them, but there's some. Yeah.
Yeah,
we'll get into this episode. What's funny is like I would be okay with my kid even being younger watching all the horror parts of it, but that first like 5 minutes, that first like couple minutes with Robert Patrick, not so much.
Right.
Stay away from that man.
At all costs.
Yeah, my experience with Tales from the Crypt is, I guess, a little less romantic than Jamie's. And I think it was probably When so Jamie's married to my sister, and
Oh,
my wife and I and Jamie and my sister, we all lived together in Chicago for a little bit, and we're all from Ohio, Northeast Ohio originally. So we had a couple years where we kind of moved out that way, and we're getting our careers kicked off out there. But while we were roommates, there was this like really cool vintage record store that was right up the street, and it was sort of like an emporium to like buy and sell media, right? So you can go in there and find Tales from the Crypt Volume 2 for $8.99 and buy it and bring it home. And we started to kind of like collect the Tales from the Crypts then. So being a kid, like X-Files was really sort of my show that I would do what Jamie just described with my family. Like I'd sneak in and watch it. So Tales from the Crypt was not. But I had interacted with it in various capacities, but it wasn't really until we were kind of roommates and doing that like sort of like hunting for seasons sort of thing, and we really just started like as a unit, like a family unit, the four of us would like watch through it pretty continuously. So that was like such a fond part of life. I guess that was probably 8-9 years ago by this point, but yeah, that was really our thing.
sweet. All right, well, let's dive into it. This week we're talking about the episode, excuse me, The New Arrival, which premiered on July 25th, 1992. Jody's not here, so I'm going to try to ad-lib a plot synopsis. So guys, feel free to jump in if I miss something out or state something grossly incorrectly. Okay, so we start off with a shock jock. I think his name is Lartho. And he is in a radio station studio, and he's doing his thing, and he is wrapping up, and then Dr. Alan Goetz, is that how they said it? Goetz.
I thought it was Gots.
Okay.
I think they say gods.
Yeah, he's coming in after him, but as the other DJ is leaving, he's talking shit about how he's going to get canned soon because his ratings are bad, so he's kind of hurting his pride. Dr. Goetz gets on the air. He gets a call from one of his regular callers named Nora, and she's talking about her problem child Felicity. And while this is happening, Dr. Goetz is overhearing a conversation with his producer. Let's see, the producer is Rana, talking to an executive named Bonnie, and basically affirming that they're about to get canceled. And while he's overhearing this, and he's hearing this other caller talk about her daughter, he says, we're going to go and do a live episode at this house, and we're going to do all of our episodes from there until we can cure this child. That's basically Rubinstein. He doesn't give a fuck about the kid. And then the executive is like, well, I'm gonna have to go with you to make sure this is on the up and up. So basically Dr. Goetz, Rana, the producer, and Bonnie go to this house, which looks pretty run down. Nora answers. She's very short, played by the amazing Zelda Rubinstein. And I say because she's short because that becomes like a plot point. And you can hear this wailing from upstairs of a child banging her head against the wall. And Dr. Goetz explicitly talks about his book, The Art of Ignoring Your Child, which is terrible, terrible advice. We'll get to that in a moment. And he's trying to kind of assess what's going on, but they're getting weird vibes from the mother, Nora, about what's going on. She's talking about her daughter Felicity's father. Shows them a picture of him in his World War II uniform. So they're like, okay, something's off, because how can she have a daughter if she was born during World War II? Again, this was in 1992. So even then, it's 40 years past. So the mother goes off to make tea for everybody. So Dr. Goetz and his producer and executive go kind of looking around to try to suss out what's happening. They see a little girl in a mask running around, which they think is really Nora, the mother. Again, that's why I mentioned that she's a short person, because they think they think she's the daughter dressed up. The daughter is like wearing, long gloves and everything. anyways, they get separated, of course, and the executive Bonnie goes into another room and she gets attacked. Later, Dr. Gotts and Rana find Bonnie's body in Felicity's bedroom. So they're like, okay, we're gonna get out of here. Let's see. So they're trying to get out. Rana gets killed by a fan somehow from the top, like a fan trap that was somehow sussed out, some setup. Anyways, Dr. Gotts goes and is tied up. I forgot how's he knocked out by Nora? Is that who knocks him out?
I assume so, because I think you kind of see her appear. No, he goes to oh god, where's Jody? We need Jody.
I know, we need Jody.
Come on, Jody.
So he's at the bottom of the steps, and I think it's Twiggy's character that gets like fanned, and
Right.
then she falls down the steps, and then it like cuts to black, and then when he comes to, he's like,
Okay, he fell down. Okay, so he got hit coming down
so
the
he's
stairs.
like at the
Okay.
bottom of the steps.
So he gets,
like,
either way, he gets knocked out. He wakes up, he's all tied up, and then Felicity's there, and he's like, "Oh, Nora, knock it off. I know it's you." And then Nora walks out, which is supposed to be the big reveal that like there actually are two different people. And they take off Felicity's mask, and it's this like really creepy ghoul skeleton living corpse. I don't know how you would describe it. Really freaky though. And they say like, we've tried all these other doctors, because Dr. Gotts has been talking about his mentors and everything, and they keep saying that, oh, they didn't know anything. It turns out they've been getting these psychologists to come visit them, and they've been abducting them and tying them up, but they weren't able to do it, so they just kind of left them there to die. So that is the predicament that Dr. Gotts is in, and he's got this like little girl demon corpse living thing on his lap, and now he's gonna have to play doctor for her the rest of his life. Sound about right? Mando, you're on mute.
Sounds good. I was gonna say he could have overpowered her anytime he wanted to.
Yeah.
they use like a jump rope to basically tie, just like one hand. I watched like when he's like, hey, why don't you untie me? It literally was like a wisp of wind, like untied. And then when she ties him back up, it's like you're tied back up.
And he just lets her, like he could have just said, like just pushed her away. Like he's obviously stronger than both of them.
Yeah. Okay. So let's kick it off. John, you are our guest, so you can start us off. What did you think of this episode?
So I've definitely seen every episode of Tales from the Crypt. And then when you floated this episode as the one we were going to cover, I started thinking, and I was like, is it that one? Is it not? And then I looked and I was like, wait, yeah, that is the one with Zelda Rubinstein. But this is like packed with like not only famous people from the era. So you have the dude that was in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, like he's the doctor in the beginning, right?
I think he's Baxter.
Yeah, dude, exactly. And then you have Twiggy, who's like super famous, right? You have Zelda Rubinstein, so you have all this like presence. You have Robert Patrick, who is probably auditioning to take over for Mulder in X-Files, like during this moment. He's like, yeah, I'll unseat that guy. You've got T2, right? So it's just like packed with people, and it really, like, as podcasters and dads, this is a really relevant episode for us to talk about because it's related to radio.
Yeah,
it literally, like, it starts off and we're in basically the moment, like the visual of what we're doing right now is what Robert Patrick's doing, just a lot douchier with his headband and glasses and absurd necklace.
I mean, he wins the episode like the first 5 seconds. He was
Dude,
like, I want this spinoff.
It is instant. I want to know what his parents look like is what I want to know. Like, that's the real dad question, is like, who are that guy? Who's his parents? But no, this episode's, it's super, it's freaky. It's a mix between like People Under the Stairs meets The Fun House meets elements like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like you've got this creepy house and it's just filled with stuff. And it has almost like a Goosebumps kind of element too, like the front porch, and they like bring you into a neighborhood, which is always I think as people from the Midwest. Jamie and I always kind of like appreciate that. But yeah, this episode's it's scary. It's packed with great people. And it definitely I feel like is influenced from a lot of things that we love. So yeah, I'm pretty high on this episode. I like it.
Great. Jamie, go ahead.
Yeah, when I found out we were doing this episode, I was pretty stoked because I love this episode. It's definitely scary. The mask, the porcelain mask, is just fucking classic scary mask. I love the vibe. I love the haunted house type setting. The daughter is just all around creepy. The twist is great. There's plot holes galore in this one. They pretty much tell everyone where they're going on the radio show before they go there, so he shouldn't be wrapped up too long. The guys upstairs are pretty much just fully intact, just really dusty. They're not skeletons at all. Like the one guy still has a beard and a pipe.
Oh, that was so funny. That was really funny.
Yeah.
I also love that he recognizes the doctor just from the beard and the pipe. Like he's like, oh, that has to be
Dr. Spetzenslackle or whatever.
Jingleheimer.
Room would smell like, and he's facing like they're all behind him. Like in real life, think of how it would smell in there. And he's like, oh, I'm inundated by this jump rope. I can't stand and turn around.
And the ultimate finisher is the fact that he has to listen to the radio show that took his time slot. So
yes.
Yeah.
Came full circle.
All right, Mando, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a lot of plot holes and a lot wrong with this episode, but it's good and it's fun and it's scary. And actually played straighter than a lot of Tales from the Crypt episodes. Where I thought it was kind of the only really goofy thing they had is the recurring electrified door handle gag, which I absolutely love that. I just wanted him to grab a door handle at the end and be like, shit, motherfucker, because it caught him like 3 times in the episode. I love the Zelda Rubinstein is just fantastic and brings kind of that cool, like creepy horror flair to everything she's in, be it Poltergeist, or I think she was in The Rise of Leslie Vernon.
Oh,
Behind the mask.
Yeah, Behind the Mask. Yeah. And just in, all kinds of stuff. And I think she's as awesome in this. And this is one of the few times she got to really kind of chew up a lot of scenery and really kind of show off her acting chops. Like even in Poltergeist, she was a big, everyone remembers her in that movie, but she wasn't really in it for that long. She just kind of had her bits and pieces, where in this one she got to play a big part in it. And my favorite scene in this whole episode is the razor blade fan or the knife fan, whatever it was. Because I remember, I did not remember the scene, but they had that cool shot where it's looking up the stairs and you see the fan. I remember looking at it and thinking, dude, did ceiling fans back then have weird like metal things on the edge of the fans? And then I saw it moving down. I was like, oh, okay, this is where we're going with this. But yeah, I thought this was a great episode.
But you're like, why doesn't she duck?
Well,
yeah,
because it's Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah,
that's
I know, exactly. I'm saying it doesn't make any sense thinking back when the moment you're like, oh shit, it's a fan that kills.
Because it's horror. It reminds me always of that scene in Austin Powers where he runs the guy over with the steamroller. And he's like, get out of the way. And the guy's like, no. He goes, you could just move.
It's like 20 feet away from him.
Yeah, that's why I love that scene in that movie. And then I love the end reveal with just the cool looking art with the corpses and spider webs over him. And then obviously him and you never know how it ends for him, but probably not well. He's probably just going to end up being one of the guys sitting in the back on one of the seats. But I tell you what, like one of my pet peeves in movies and TV shows is when, like we said on this one, where he's tied down to the chair and anyone with a brain could just get up and walk away. That just drives me insane. Like make it look somewhat believable. Come on.
Yeah.
But yeah, a great episode. And yeah, it's we're just continuing with this roll of pretty damn good episodes from season 3 to season 4.
Nice. Yeah, I love and hate this episode because when I saw this as a kid, it scared the shit out of me. I could not sleep with the light off. Like it was so. This might have been like the first like quote nihilistic thing.
When you were really scared, did your parents just ignore you?
They just said ignore it, ignore it, ignore it.
And that snap, by the way, is like a firecracker. Like that was the crispest snap on earth. They probably practiced like 50 snaps and they're like, oh no, that's the one we're going to use like each time he does it, because that thing it clicked.
Yeah, no, this is definitely one that's like in my head, or that scared me the most of things I've ever actually seen. Like I think I was probably in the 7th or 8th grade when I saw this, and this when we started this episode, I was like, okay, this is one I know is going to be. This is an episode that I really want to revisit and kind of see how it clicks with me now. And now I really enjoy it, but it definitely brings back that memory. And all week I've been thinking about that. But yeah, it would scare the crap out of me because to me, the campiness, and again, this is a pretty straight episode, but even like, yeah, those plot holes and stuff, I was just so engrossed by that ending of this guy tied to a chair with this like little corpse girl sitting on his lap just for the rest of his life. Just really like had a big impression on me. So yeah, it just is one of those I instantly think about. This was directed by Peter Medak, who directed the classic Changeling, which is very apropos of this episode. Big haunted house, creepy children, etc. He's done a ton of things, but as far as like horror genre, he did the movie Species 2, and he did Homicide: Life on the Streets, a handful of episodes. He also did a handful of episodes for Hannibal, which is cool, and he's still doing work, which is great. Dr. Alan Gatz was played by David Warner. He was in The Omen. He was in Tron, Waxworks, Star Trek 5 and 6 as different characters. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, In the Mouth of Madness. He was in Titanic. He was in Scream 2 as the theater professor that Sydney works with. And at least according to IMDb, you can never trust these things for sure, but he was originally cast as Freddy Krueger. But as scheduling conflicts came up and he couldn't do the movie. And I can kind of see it. I mean,
For some reason, that sounds like a story I've heard before too.
Yeah, it would be different, but I'd be interested to see that.
Isn't that insane to think like, hey, do you want to go to dinner? Oh, I can't. It was like, oh, hey, everyone that went to the restaurant won the lottery tonight and you didn't come. So.
Well, again, if he did it, maybe it might not have been the iconic.
Yeah.
It might have just been like a different ingredient that could have ruined the dish. Who knows? You never know with those kind of things. But yeah, it does kind of suck.
Yeah. That's crazy. I actually have Scream 2 on behind me right now, by the way.
Nice.
Hey, remember that role you turned down? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Right. Rana, the producer, is played by Joan Severance, which is kind of a badass name. She was in See No Evil, Hear No Evil, Bird on the Wire. And she did this really fun looking kind of superhero cop noir show or movie called Black Scorpion.
You said See No Evil. I was thinking, oh, that
not,
film.
not the Kane. This is like from the 70s or 80s.
Fun fact about Kane. If anyone's a wrestling fan growing up and you want to lose all respect for the guy, just check his Twitter. Just check his Twitter feed out.
Never
that guy sucks.
Never do that. Zelda Rubinstein is iconic. Poltergeist 1, 2, and 3. She was in 16 Candles, Picket Fences. She was on a ton of, and again, Behind the Mask. Fantastic movie if you haven't seen it. Twiggy, who played Bonnie the executive, she was in The Blues Brothers and in Body Bags, the John Carpenter anthology movie, among many things. Robert Patrick, again, he's only in that one scene, but man, I love it when he lets loose. He's one of those guys where he like plays characters so reserved, like he plays, the T-1000 Terminator 2 is just like every movement is like calculated and planned out. And then he can just play a total wacko just off the wall. He was also in Die Hard 2, Fire in the Sky, The Faculty, The Sopranos, The X-Files.
Yeah, Fire in the Sky is fucking terrifying.
Yeah, that trailer scared me a lot.
We love The Faculty. I mean, all that. He's great.
Well, he's great. Like in Peacemaker, he's amazing.
Oh yeah, he plays a douchebag really well in that.
Yeah, a douchebag Nazi. You're like, okay, great. And then this is what I really love is the actress who plays Felicity is a stunt woman named Laura Dash, and she played body doubles in like tons of movies for kids. She was Data's stunt double in The Goonies. She was in the Monster Squad. She was Jamie, what's her name from Halloween? Not Lee Curtin, the kid. Jamie Lloyd. She was Jamie Lloyd's stunt double in Halloween 4 and 5. Kindergarten Cop, Jurassic Park, Hocus Pocus, Interview with a Vampire, Pet Sematary. So she if you Google her, there's some really cool pictures of her. standing next to the actual actor or actress dressed in the same stuff, and it's really like uncanny.
And none of our listeners can see this, but if you see the spreadsheet that Jason writes up, no
Oh,
one has ever
stop.
spelled the word Jurassic worse. Like, it's not even close.
I do this on the fly. No one else is supposed to see this. They're not supposed to know about it yet. Mondo.
It's Juriska Park, which that sounds like one of those asylum made for home video films.
Oh my god. Have you
Oh,
have you
yeah, it
guys
really
seen Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, the new one?
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen the.
I watched it tonight, and there's a whole like bootlegging subplot. It's actually really good. I highly recommend it. Watch it with your kids, watch it by yourself. It's fun.
Yeah, if you are a Rescue Rangers fan, then yeah, you'll definitely. I think you would like it either way, but you'll get more nostalgia out of it if you were a fan growing up.
But I mean, really, not to go off on a tangent, but it's really a Who Framed Roger Rabbit sequel.
Yeah, yeah.
Important question: is Launchpad in it?
No, but Darkwing Duck is.
Dude, I'm out then because Launchpad might. That was
Tailspin.
right? That Tailspin. Oh, you're right. That was Tailspin. Okay, never mind.
Jeez.
I turn in my Disney card or whatever the fuck.
So
it is.
sad. Jeez.
He was in DuckTales as well.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
I just have to say this. Since you mentioned it, I've actually just been going through Kane's Twitter.
Oh god.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, John, because oh my god.
I'm getting deep in there and I'm also getting sad.
I once said hello to him at the airport, and I wish I could go back in time and not say hello to him. That's how much it pisses me off.
Oh man.
But yeah, can we talk about how terrible of a child therapist Dr. Goetz is, or Gatz? It's like everything he does is the complete opposite. You know, like as a parent, I'm just like wanting to scream at the TV.
He sounds like the kind of guy that.
Why ask for advice? Because you know the answer is going to be like, don't worry about it. Like that's his answer to everything. And also he goes from like he clearly has anger issues, and he'll snap from like 0 to 100,000, which is why Rona's like, you see, this is why we have to fire this prick. Like, and he's literally like on air, and she's like trashing him while he's talking, and he can hear it. But Mondo, sorry, I cut you off, man.
No, that's perfect. No, he seems like one of those guys that, you know, times have passed him by, and he doesn't understand why. Because he doesn't realize that, like, dude, like your ways are the wrong ways, and you refuse to learn and get better, like a certain WWE wrestler named Kane, who also refuses to get better at life. I'm gonna turn this episode to me feuding with Kane on Twitter. That's my goal. He's a big dude, but I'm younger and have jujitsu skills. I can take him. But like it's kind of one of those things. Yeah, you're right. He snaps. Like he's definitely like that old man who yells at trees, right? He's just angry at like the world at this point, that everything's passing him by, and people don't want to hear his old bullshit anymore. And I did think it was funny as hell. He's hitting the door trying to break it down by using his book, and then they ask him a parenting question. He goes, "It's not in my book." Like, dude, like
that was so funny when he was like, "I've consulted basically what I know is the Bible, which is something I wrote, and there's no answer for how to handle this situation."
Yeah, so we're fucked. So it's like, and the whole idea of like ignore your kids is just terrifying. And that was probably a parenting tactic of one day. It probably kind of went away when we also realized we shouldn't give our kids whiskey when they're teething. I think all that kind of went away at the same time. Because you should not ignore your child, because when they're upset, it's because they need something or they want something.
Probably around the same time they took out the cocaine from Coke.
yeah, don't give your kids heroin when they have a cold anymore. Like so it's like the worst parenting advice. I'm just gonna say that. Like are there times when you do have to give your children some tough love? Yeah, but not like that. Usually when your child's upset, it's because they need something, and sometimes all they need is you to sit down and just hang with them or talk to them, not ignore them.
Yeah, they just want to be listened. They just want to be heard. I wonder if this episode was kind of a reaction or a spoof of Frasier, which was obviously big around this time.
Interesting.
I got Frasier vibes as well from just that setup.
Yeah, I've heard some stories about Kelsey Grammer being a dick, so I would not be surprised if that's if some executive or producer like had a bad run-in with Frasier and like, okay, we're gonna make a Tales from the Crypt episode about you.
Huh. Interesting.
Also, I feel like we have to mention the purple bubblegum hallway, which is
Ugh.
just like
Oh,
throw that
gross.
shit in the trash can.
Like, you think if I went to someone's house and it looked like that and the hallway looked like that, I'm just gonna go home. Like, I'm not gonna try. I'm like, that's so disgusting. Like, at what point do you just call Child Protective Services? Like, look,
Yeah.
someone needs to go check in on these people.
And I like how the
Mm.
like the most stuck up of the bunch is the one that initially gets electrocuted to the point
Yes.
where she's like blown off her feet and falls on the ground, and then gets up and is like, all right, I have to do my job and go inside now. Because like in real life, that person would be like,
I'm
I'm
out.
fucking suing and I'm out.
Mhm. Yeah, especially that character.
Yeah.
Yep.
Who's complaining about the bubblegum being on her Italian shoes, you know, just a couple minutes later.
Speaking of her death is pretty cool because you get that like Halloween
Oh yeah, I forgot about
kind of
that.
shot of inside the killer's mask as the
Mhm.
killer's coming towards her and apparently strangles her with the rope. But I thought that was actually a really cool scene. Oh, I think I forgot to bring up was when they're going through the names of the old doctors that have dead. They, one is Dr. Kassir.
Kassir, yeah.
Yeah.
That too.
I should take
I love
notes.
when they throw little Easter eggs in like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, I like that shot too. It's pretty intense shot again. This is a very scary episode, like the way it's shot and directed. I mean, a lot of the premise and a lot of the gags are really silly, but it's just done with such a tone of seriousness that just it's really affecting.
Yeah, it's all very malicious.
Mhm.
All very intentionally dark. It's not meant to be, some deaths are just again, they're still kind of wacky, but a lot of times they play them really tongue-in-cheek, and these are played very in a very serious tone, even though they were kind of over the top.
Mhm.
I don't want to bring us out of the house, but does anyone want to talk about Robert Patrick's outfit?
Go for it.
The bandana.
Or maybe they got all the campiness and craziness out in like the first 10 seconds.
So his bandana
It seems
covers
that way.
basically from his eyebrows to the nape of his neck, right? So like he's got a full comprehensive covering bandana. He has the largest, darkest pair of sunglasses imaginable and he's in a dark recording space that are just propped down enough for him to peer over them. He's got a black leather jacket, a black shirt underneath, and a pair of wooden beads around his neck that still have everybody guessing what the function of those beads are. Like,
if you had to guess, so what would they be for, Jason?
Yeah, Jason, what are they for?
Rosary?
Perfect answer.
They
Thank
look
you.
like in the 90s when cab drivers in New York City would have like those those bead seat covers.
I've always wanted to try one of
Oh
those.
yeah.
It was like
They
that.
just feel like beads.
Yeah, in a necklace form.
Let's be honest, we know at some point where those beads are going, and it's not the church.
Going in an anus. Those are anal beads.
Wood anal beads. I can't imagine anything worse.
Yeah, there's a lot of worse stuff you can probably
Yeah,
imagine when you
probably.
think about it, like war and famine are way worse. So,
But yeah, he's absurd in this, and that's why I think, Jamie, to your point about like the nail in the coffin at the end for the doctor is like, this tool bag took your job and now you have to listen to it as he's doing his stupid voice, like just being a doucher,
It's absurd.
All right.
and it's one thing to also think about in that era too. That was still the era where the radio DJ was like a very prominent position. Where nowadays, obviously, I mean, I can't say the last time I actually listened to the radio, but back then, like a radio DJ was kind of it was a good job. It was a big deal to be on the radio.
Mhm.
So for anybody who's younger that's watching this, like that was, I guess, a prestigious job, I should say.
Yeah, I
Also,
mean,
like the Howard
DJs were like
Stern.
local celebrities almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone was trying to be the next Howard Stern at the time.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the comic book. Let me get to there. So this was Haunt of Fear, number 25. So I read this very quickly right before we went on. And what's interesting is oftentimes in the EC comics, there's like a narration that's kind of happening at the top of the frame as things are happening kind of within the actual frame. So a bunch of text on the top. That's usually a character's narration or thoughts. And then there's like, kind of stuff that's happening in the main plot. But this time the narration is from the point of view of an old house. Talking about how
Really?
old it, yeah. So basically it's like about, oh, I'm this old house that's falling down and breaking. And then in the bottom panels, there's this guy who's got stuck in the mud is going to the house. And the house, again, we're in the mind of the house. He's like, oh, don't come in here. You don't know what horrors are going to happen. Heed the signs. He's like, oh, the house is like, oh, there's bats. You should be afraid of bats. And this guy just keeps like, oh, no, I need to find a place to stay. I don't care about bats. And eventually this guy, he's a salesman. He finds, he hears a wailing. And he finds, I guess, the actual part of the house where people live. There's an old woman there. He says, oh, it's my son. He's just really sick right now. Don't worry. Don't listen. I'm going to go take care of him. He says, okay. I need a place to stay. She puts him up for the night, but he gets woken up again by this screaming. And the house is like, don't you understand what's happening? You need to get out of here. You need to get out of here. It's actually really kind of creepy and intense. The house is thinking like, don't you hear there's something wrong with this quote child? And he eventually like gets up in the middle of the night, goes to see what's going on because he can hear this child wailing, and it turns out it's a grown person who's been chained up and like being kept by the old lady. And then when he sees this, he's like gasping in horror, and the house is like, don't you see, get out of here before while you still can. And then the lady comes behind him and knocks him on the head. And the house gives you the skinny of what happened, that this is her child, that she wanted to be a baby forever, so she kept him chained up and as a baby. And now the child, the quote child man, is dying, and now she's kidnapping this other guy to be her new baby. And it ends with him in chains, and this old woman's giving him a bottle, calling him her little dumpling now. So it's very different, but the very skeleton of the plot is kind of there, at least as far as the ending of someone being chained up and being forced to being held captive, and it's actually a really creepy comic.
Is he held by chains in the comic, or
Actual chains, not jump ropes? No.
Oh, thank Christ.
More like Hellraiser chains than
just gonna hook you up real quick and make sure you'll never leave. How what's the like consistency look like from comic book story to the episode typically?
They kind of vary. Sometimes they're like very spot on when they just change a couple things to modernize, and other times like this one, it's extremely different. Like you could tell they like found an angle they wanted to use as the child psychologist going to take care of going to a house to meet a child. Like they kind of invented this whole other thing. And yeah, this would have been like less than 10 minutes if they done a straight adaptation. And it definitely enhanced the episode by adding a whole other layer onto it.
And bringing on like an actual, like, not to discredit any of the other contributors, but like the director for this film like has credential, right? Like he's done stuff, he's made a feature film that is a top 10 horror film, realistically, right? The Changelings, like that's an amazing film. And that's probably a lot of people's favorites. And
yeah, I mean, it seems to me like usually with these episodes, they have the script pretty well down by the time the director shows up. The director might have like some input for stuff on the day, but as far as the overall plot.
But I think some of the best episodes of Tales from the Crypt are when they have good writers who really flesh the characters out and really understand that sometimes the characters in the comic don't work for. Like in this one, the main character sounded like it was the house, which is actually a really cool spin, that the haunted house is the protagonist almost.
It's a little weird at first to be like to have an inanimate object like describing itself and talking, but once you get into it, it's an interesting take.
Yeah, but I think one thing Gil and Al said is that the whole goal is like you have to have a character that people want to sink their teeth into. If you don't have that, you don't have anything. So I do like when they rewrite the characters to make them intriguing characters, which I think they did a pretty good job on this, where Even though, yeah, obviously, Dr. Getz is a terrible human being, he's still intriguing and acted very well.
Yeah. All
His
right.
character is really silly.
Yeah.
The way the things he gets mad about, like when she's talking about Dr. Spatzel, whatever the hell, and
Spatzel.
she says that, like, you know, his approach didn't work, and he's like, well, what do you know? It's like, God damn, cool down, buddy.
They're
Yeah.
so like such shit. Like when they're on the air, and he's like, what do you know, asshole, or whatever he
Yeah.
said. Like, what are you doing? Why are you so mean to her? And she just follows him around. And when they're arguing on the steps, speaking of the changeling, it's a very changeling moment.
Oh yeah.
When they're arguing on the steps, it's just ridiculous. Like, you're fired. No, I quit. Like, all right, fine. Oh wait, no, you're getting chopped by a fan, so don't worry about it.
All right, let's move on to our ratings. John, what would you give this episode on a scale of 0 to 5, 5 being the best, 0 being the worst? You can do half points.
Oh, so 0 to 5 skulls. I would give this one 3.75 skulls.
I'm doing this at 3.5.
No, we can do quarter points. It's fine. Just add it in there.
Yeah, you said you could do half. Yeah, 3.5. I'll go 3.5, but I might change to 4 by the end. I might change to 3. 3.5.
All right, Jamie.
I'm gonna go with 4 actually. I just feel like it's got that. You always want like a scary Tales from the Crypt episode. At least I always do, and they're not always scary. This one is genuinely scary, so I'm gonna bump it up to 4.
All right, Mando.
Yep, same boat. It's a 4 for me as being one of the scary episodes of the series, and I just love me some Zelda Rubinstein, so it gets a 4 for me.
Cool. I'm doing the 4.5. It's like right there. The fact that it had such an impact on me, and I still find it creepy. Just, you know, that's so rare, especially in the Tales from the Crypt episodes.
Have you guys had a 5-star yet?
What's up?
Have you guys had a 5-star?
Oh
yeah,
we've had some 5 stars.
We're super generous. I'm too old to be critical anymore. I was like, yeah, if I liked it, it's 5. If I didn't,
yeah, it has to be a pretty bad episode.
Yeah, there
you guys had
really,
0
really great ones.
or 1?
I thought we haven't had. I mean, 0 would just be like nothing. Like,
Yeah.
you just sit in the room.
0 would be like if they had Glenn Jacobs, aka Kane, the mayor of Knoxville, Tennessee,
God.
as a or Knox County, Tennessee, as a character. No, we've definitely had some 1s and some 2s on here though, because there's been a couple episodes that were just like super misogynistic or had no real value to them. We're like, oh, this is just ugh.
There's one called Love at First Sight that is like
yeah,
notoriously hated, and it all revolved around the love potion, which like it's just so dated and just does not work on
well, not just dated. It was just overall just a bad episode. The writing wasn't good. The acting's the only thing that saved it from being in 0 probably is because the actors did their best, but everything about it was just bad.
Yeah.
Yes, I stormed in as you were explaining the reason for your 4.5. I'm sorry, man.
No, that's fine. No, I was just gonna say that it's just overall great directing, great acting, everything is there. All right.
Like I said, 4 stars.
Yeah, Jason, I forgot to guess your score tonight, but I was thinking you're gonna get us a 5.
All right.
So I was off.
It's not quite a 5, but yeah.
Oh, I know. It's definitely a 5.
All right, John, you're bumping yourself. Not that matters, but John, you're bumping yourself up to a 4.
I mean, you can talk me into a 5 if you have to, but
No.
no, I'll go 4.
I mean, you can stay hard on that 3.5 too. It's totally cool.
Secret, these ratings don't really mean anything, but
it's like whose line is anyway.
yeah, exactly. It doesn't go anywhere. I used to keep a spreadsheet about it with it, but I haven't done it in a long time. So, all right. Anything else before we wrap this episode up? Or at least the episode discussion. We've got plenty more to talk about. Okay, we'll move on to Al's anecdotes. Al, take it away. All right, Mando, give us your song of the day.
Alrighty, I'm gonna do a band I've done before because it's Father's Day, and this song fits in with Father's Day, and it's from a band called Bathory, who started out early. I've done their bio before. Started in the '80s and just kind of a evil, dark black metal band. And the guy decided he wanted to really tap into his Quarthon from Bathory decided he wanted to tap into his Viking roots, his Norwegian or his Nordic roots, and so the first couple records are very aggressive, very angry, and then he went kind of this Viking metal route, and everything was, dare I say, operatic, and he couldn't sing worth a shit. But it's funny because you can hear passion in his voice. Sometimes, like I take it's Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan can't sing. People that say Bob Dylan can sing, they're lying. But he's a passionate singer, and that passion a lot of times makes up for lack of technical prowess, I guess. So in the later albums, he did a lot of singing and not a lot of screeching and growling. But on the record Hammerheart, which is based off mostly Nordic mythos, he did a song called Father to Son, which is basically a father who knows he's going to die in battle, telling his son how to live his best life and how to be the best person for his fellow countrymen, and telling him, make sure that all these lessons I teach you, you pass down and you keep this going, because that's how we become great people. So song of the week. And I'm not going to go into Bathory's whole backstory as I could, but I've already done it before. I know I probably ranted about Bathory for like 15 minutes the first time I talked about him. So, but it's gonna be Bathory, the band, the album Hammerheart, the song Father to Son, and that's just a phenomenal record from start to finish. One of my favorite records of all time. So, if anybody wants to just hear where like all this modern Viking metal, I guess you can call it, sound came from, just all you have to do is go back and listen to Bathory, because he did what, Under the Sign of the Black Mark, which is straight black metal, and then did Blood Fire Death, which is where you kind of hear the movement to the later epic sound, and then he did Hammerheart, which is the first like truly epic record that he did. And just for anybody out there, I wouldn't this is not a record I'll recommend to non-metalheads, because the production's pretty rough. I think you got to kind of have a little bit of love for the genre to really enjoy it, but it's a beautiful, fantastic record with some great songs on it.
So you're not going with Cats in the Cradle?
No, absolutely not. Like, dude, just because it's an iconic fucking Americana song does not mean it's good. That's the thing. Like, this is why people like Led Zeppelin, because they think they're supposed to, and no, they fucking suck.
No,
and
of course. I was thinking about the most obvious father-son song possible.
Yeah, I was actually gonna go originally with the Merciful Fate songs. I thought that the song name was cool, called Doomed by the Living Dead, off the Nuns Had No Fun EP. But yeah, I've done that before, and I really want to kind of tie into Father's Day. And I think this is actually a really, really cool song. And even if you have a daughter, I think it all fits with it's just basically a parental figure passing down their wisdom and knowledge and life lessons to their child. I think it's a cool song. Like I said, man, like, the guy can't fucking sing, but he's so passionate. It comes to with so much power. You can just get into it. And I think that's a really cool thing when you can have that much passion and power in your voice to do that.
Nice. All right, we're gonna move on to trivia of the day, and we're doing something a little bit different, especially since Jody's not here. And we're going to talk about some polling that we did among our listeners, and then we'll do a little discussion between us about what's the scariest thing movie or show that you've watched. What scared you the most? So I already talked about how this episode definitely scared the bejesus out of me. I was afraid of a lot of like iconography growing up, like the Jason and Freddy, just the visions, the visage of them, and the commercials and the little teasers I saw scared me, but I never actually saw any of those when I was that young. The other two things that I'll totally admit scared the crap out of me was the Blair Witch. I lived in Oregon at the time, so everything was woods. So the movie, to me, and you just hadn't seen anything like that, especially on the big screen, and it just got under my skin. And then I left the theater, and then like there's just trees everywhere.
How old were you, Jason, when that came out?
I was a senior in high school, so I was
like perfect time.
Yeah, I was probably like 18.
If the Blair Witch is set in Oregon, though, the Blair Witch would have been riding around on a unicycle and juggling at the same time, though.
Yeah. So but yeah, again, living in a place covered in trees.
Coffee.
Yeah, drinking
coffee and IPAs while juggling and riding a unicycle through the woods.
So I totally admit that scared the crap out of me. And then actually, when I saw The Ring for the first time, I remember I was in college. A bunch of my friends drank a ton in the parking lot right before we went in, and we didn't really know what it was. It was just one of those, oh, cool, this is coming out. Let's all go see it. And again, I'd never seen anything like that before, and just totally I was just hooked by it, and just scared shitless by the end of it. Especially that fucking scene where they flash the girl in the closet. Like that was probably the biggest jump scare I've ever like had.
Dude, for me, the creepiest scene in that movie is when the mom is telling the son, don't worry, let her loose, and he just sits up and goes, you weren't supposed to let her loose. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, there's so many of those oh shit scene moments. So what about you guys?
Go ahead, John.
So I guess I have a few different answers for this for a few different points of my life. And so Jamie and I yesterday went to a horror convention in Monroeville, Pennsylvania.
Oh, nice.
Awesome.
Dead weekend. And it was great. So we went to the Monroeville Mall. So it was fantastic. But we had an hour and a half drive there, an hour and a half drive back to just basically talk about horror and be friends. And we were discussing stuff growing up, and pretty much like we just did an episode on horror television shows, and we were talking a little bit about stuff that we missed on that episode. And I don't know if you guys remember the show Salute Your Shorts.
Oh yeah,
of course, yeah.
But that Zeke the plumber character on Salute Your Shorts.
Oh yes,
I think I'm probably the youngest person on this call. I was born in '87. So when that came to me as a youngin, that scared the hell out of me. So that was like my first introduction, I think, to like watching something that I thought was safe and then realizing like, oh, you're never safe. Because that show was ostensibly like pretty safe and kid friendly up until that character was a factor. But my first movie, I'd say like I think my very first horror movie I watched was Halloween 6. I watched that the same night I watched The Burbs, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. And that's really what kind of like started to get me into horror. But the first movie I watched in full around that time too was Scream. You know, being 9 years old, and still to this day, it's one of my favorite horror films. So that's really the one that put its hooks in me and dragged me into the genre, and scared the absolute hell out of me when it came out.
Nice. Jamie,
Are we just doing scariest scenes, or what is this?
like a scene or from a show or a movie that really scared you,
or just a movie or show in general, whatever you
Yeah.
want to do.
Gotcha. So when I don't even remember how old I was, but it was the original Nightmare on Elm Street was out. I don't know if it was on HBO or what. My stepdad took us to his sister's apartment, and we walked in, small place, so everybody was just kind of congregated in the living room watching a movie. Little did I know they had just turned on Nightmare on Elm Street, and I was probably, I don't know, I was probably younger than 8. So let's say somewhere between like 4 and 8. And the scene where Tina is walking through the boiler room, you have the sheep. Like, I just remember being so fucking disturbed by by the imagery that I was seeing and hearing. And it was one of those things that just like the entire night was ruined for me. Like, I think I went in the kitchen and sat in there by myself to avoid having to see any more of this. Just the sounds of Freddie talking and him scraping the glove, everything about it was so terrifying to me. So that's one scene that's always stuck with me. I mean, I love it now. I love the entire franchise. But yeah, that was ingrained in me from a young age. So yeah, I mean, pretty much all those 80s horror movies that I grew up with, like I remember just The Gate, even though that's not super inherently scary. I always had the imagery of like the moths in the jar, stuff like that. Just stuff like that creeped me out more than the little shitty monsters, you know?
Jamie, you were born what, 81?
Yeah, 81, yeah.
Okay.
And
I remember walking in on my parents watching The Shining once, and it was the end maze scene with, you know, Jack running through with the axe, and I just remember being like, I need to leave. I need to see my way out. So just those scenes as a kid that you know you shouldn't see, you know?
Oh, the music in that scene is so intense too.
Oh,
Pretty overwhelming. Yeah.
All right, Mondo.
All right, so what's funny is my first horror movie experience ever was walking in on my mom watching Nightmare on Elm Street 2, which came out like what, 86
yeah.
or 85.
So
That was-
scary too.
It was right after it came out and she had rented it. And I was way too, I was born in 83. So I think I was probably 4, maybe 5, the oldest when I walked in there watching it. And the scene was the scene where Freddy's coming out of Jesse's body. And you see his hands there and the claws by the hand. And then the part that fucking freaked me out was the eyeball. He opens his mouth and you see Freddy's eyeball looking around. And my mom thought it was cool. Just let me sit there and watch this. So thanks, Mom. And that scene just fucking traumatized me because I was just terrified. And for years, like I fell in love with the character of Freddy. Obviously, years later, I mean, if you look at my downstairs living room, it's all Freddy posters and Freddy action figures. I love
Nice.
turn into my favorite thing in the world. You know, turning trauma into something that you love. But like I was mortified to the point where like I would hear that New Line Cinema intro for anything, and I'd be like, fuck, what's about to happen?
Yeah.
So to me, like to this day, that's one of those scenes that I watch now, and I really love that scene. But it brings me back to being that just terrified child again. But a couple other ones, Poltergeist, especially because I watched that when I was way too young too. I was probably 8 or 9 when I watched that, and we used to live in Virginia, and we had trees everywhere. And we'd always have the trees against to hit the windows, right? And the scene where the tree hits the window and it just keeps coming in and grabs the kid. And I was like, holy shit, I did not expect that. I thought this was gonna be like a red herring. You know, even to this day, like I feel like that should be like a red herring scene, one of those scenes that get you set up for something later. But no, they just go all out with a tree trying to eat that kid. And I'm like, that is so fucked up. And then
so much about Poltergeist and how like you should feel safe because it's middle America, like the suburbs, you're insulated, you're okay, you have loving parents, and then before you know it, a fucking tree is trying to eat you.
yes,
Yeah.
terrifying. And then I'll be honest and say that. So I when I was 11 or 12 out here in Las Vegas in 6th grade. I lived in a legit haunted house, and people probably laugh at that and say, no, there's just some shit that happened in that house that I'll never be able to explain. Where I don't know if I necessarily believe in ghosts in the traditional sense, but energy somehow being trapped somewhere. We found out the house we were living in actually ended up being the people that rented it before us had been renting the house for like 20 years, and they got evicted. And they got evicted because they were running an illegal crematorium out of it. They're burning bodies in the fire. We had a giant fireplace in the middle of the house that connected the den to the dining room.
Nope.
And they're burning bodies in there.
Nope.
Which so we did our 6-month, or maybe I think we did a year lease and got the fuck out of there. but a lot of weird shit happened in that house. So when Paranormal Activity came out, that movie really fucked me up.
Dude, that movie when it came out scared the hell out of me.
Fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
And
in college.
Yeah, that movie fucking terrified me. And I'll say to this day, it's one of the scariest movies ever made. Like people laugh at it now, but I saw it at a pre-screening before the trailers were even out. We just got an invite to a pre-screening one day. We're coming out of the movie theater. And actually, we were watching the pre-screening of the Wolfman movie with Benicio del Toro, and Anthony Hopkins. And someone said, hey, if you guys want to see another pre-screening next week, come to this. So we went to it, and it was Paranormal Activity. So we saw it before the reaction, the fucking reaction videos. So no one knew how this was act. And just like the vibe in that theater was uncomfortable. And I mean that like in the best way possible. That people were actually legit freaked out. And I still remember my wife and I were sitting next to this. It was like a young African-American kid and his date. And he's just kept saying like, hey, babe, if you're scared, we can go. Like you could tell he wanted to just get the fuck out of there. And I kind of love that. And then you know how people do that kind of awkward laugh when something scary happens. You can tell like it's uncomfortable. And I still remember that movie being terrifying. And the last thing I'll say is
if you're not prepared for that movie or don't know anything about it, I can't imagine just having that movie thrust on you.
No, I still stand by the fact that I think the first 3 are great. Like I think
I love the
of
first
them are
3.
Great. I think the third might be the best one, but fuck, that first one got me. And then the last one is definitely a Fire in the Sky. Fire in the Sky terrified the fuck out of me as a kid. And because back then we didn't have the internet. Like you heard about this movie called Fire in the Sky based off a true story. And if you actually do research, I did research on this not too long ago. And the dude, the star of the story, the person who actually had it happen to him in real life, so to speak, still stands by it 100%. He's taken lie detector tests that say he's telling the truth about everything he's brought up. And who knows if it's a hallucination or not. But man,
he thinks it's real.
But that was also in the movies when we saw the movies growing up with like you had two extremes, right? The really violent, insane aliens like the xenomorphs, or kind of the weird, are they our friends? Are they not? But they're kind of goofy. And this one, the aliens were played so dead serious. Like they were just another group of people that were here to experiment, and we were just cattle to them, basically. And I thought it was fucking terrifying.
And Robert Patrick didn't have the same appearance in that film as he did in the episode of Tales from the Crypt.
Like there may have been some probing on there, but they weren't from his anal bead necklace.
All right, Mando, what response did we get from our listeners?
So we got some cool ones off of also on Instagram. The Men I've Tolerated podcast, great podcast by the way, said X-Files.
Yeah,
which I know a lot of people probably a little bit younger than us or maybe same age as us, that even that intro song is scary to them, because that came out at a time where you just didn't see that on that wasn't on network TV. _water_works says Pet Cemetery, which I can definitely see that. I think it's a great, well, hopefully they meant the original, not the fucking remake. But Gag Me with the Chainsaw says The Ring, much like you, Jason. Christina Puff, also Fire in the Sky. And then it Creeps and Ghouls, Nightmare on Elm Street was the first horror movie they ever watched, and they couldn't sleep for weeks. So Jamie, I'll ask you, did you try to stay up late after watching that? Did you not want to go to sleep afterwards? I didn't.
I'm sure that I tried climbing in my mom's bed, much to her chagrin. But yeah, I'm almost positive I took that approach.
Yeah, I'm just not gonna sleep. Fuck it.
I'll figure out.
From CHH 1138, they said the opening credits to Tales from the Dark Side, which sadly I can't picture right now. And then we had
I love the score.
Yeah, I just don't remember. I know I've seen the movie, I've watched the show, but I just don't remember the theme. A Mangle Tube _ says Goosebumps and Sinister 2.
Both great.
Which I'll give. I don't know about Sinister 2, but the first Sinister I thought was
first one, yeah.
Legit scary movie. The fucking lawnmower scene. That one got me in the theater. I was like, holy shit, like ugh. And then and just like, and especially like the beginning, even with the hanging scene when there's kids dying, I think that even brings up a different level. When it's kids killing kids, like holy shit.
Yeah,
I find the pool scene to be one of the more disturbing ones. Just those poor kids tied to the fucking beach chair. Oh, Jesus.
And there's an unexpected snake jump scare, which always
was there.
Oh yeah,
it's like in the box or something. You know that gets me.
And also what's terrifying in those movies is fucking like Ethan Hawke's his sweater and his elbow pads in that sweater, terrifying.
On every fucking scene too.
Yeah, like
he wears it for like 40 days straight. It's like, dude, come on,
dude. I want his writing sweater.
I want that sweater because it's got to be comfy, right? Like, goddamn, it's got.
Oh yeah.
There's no way it isn't. Also, it's summer, Ethan.
Like, I just want him like sitting down with the director, be like, all right, like I'll do the movie under one condition. I have to wear this sweater in every scene.
I have very sensitive elbows.
I need elbow pads.
They sign off in advance. He's like, I choose my wardrobe, and little did he know that he was going to wear the same outfit the whole movie.
I think you should have made it just a thing where every movie he's in, he's got that same sweater, just follows every movie to movie.
Yeah.
And last but not least, from Instagram, Art and Austin says, "Call me weird, but the movie that scared me the most was Ernest Scared Stupid."
Hey,
which you want to know what? That came out in 91. It had some pretty scary shit in there. The kids being turned to little wooden dolls.
Yeah, I mean that's a fair answer.
But Jamie, you love that movie, dude.
Yeah, I got into that movie later in life though. Like that was one of those where I think it was almost when my parents were renting it for me, I think I was almost too young. But it wasn't even scary. I was just like I don't know. I was sort of removed from it.
No, I'm with you. I actually love that movie. I think it's a lot better than people give it credit for. And granted, I haven't seen it probably in 10, 15 years, but I remember the character design for the trolls actually being really good. The comedy was dumb, which I love, and it had the really cool like Halloween set pieces from around the town, which I'll be honest, I'm an unabashed fan of Hubie's Halloween, just because the set pieces are such like middle America Halloween set pieces that which I just love to death.
I totally agree with that. Yeah. It's just like it's like they're squeezing Halloween out of every scene. Yeah.
Which I absolutely love.
That's like catnip. So
yeah. Like nerds like us are just like, ooh, give me more.
Exactly.
Rubbing our heads on it. Yeah.
Hubie Halloween, I'm like, I know this isn't good, but like I'm gonna watch this 4 times.
Yeah. I watch it like every year now. Yeah.
And then just bring up a couple from our friends from Bloody Good Horror. Our friend Chris says Evil Dead 1 was the first movie that I couldn't sleep that night.
Yeah.
Which Evil Dead 1 is pretty was pretty heavy. The molesting tree. That's
I'm surprised we haven't heard Amityville. Because now that I think about it, that was a really fucking scary one too. Like just the flies. I remember that scene, just like holy hell.
You know, it's funny. The first Amityville did nothing for me. I thought the remake was scarier with Ryan Reynolds in it.
It might have just been a timing thing.
I was
and
I was too distracted by the abs.
The second one, if Jason likes one thing, it's abs.
Yeah.
The second one though, they did Amityville Horror 2: The Possession. I stand by also that being one of the scariest films ever made. It's kind of based off the real life case, and just there's a scene where they show him going to the house and hunting down his family with a shotgun, and it's just so fucking disturbing.
And that sweaty ass dad is pretty scary too.
Yeah,
in the first one,
is that the one with the dad, like the really nasty like Italian dad or whatever?
Yes.
The second one. Yeah.
Yes, the second
sweaty dad.
Yeah, The Possession. That one, in my opinion, I thought was just terrifying. A couple more. Our friend Alyssa says the movie Darkness Falls gave her nightmares. She's a lot younger than us. I think she's like in her early 20s, at 23, 24, 25, somewhere around there. So I could definitely see that. That was a decent movie. And also sometimes when you see these movies as a kid too, it's also has a different effect, like how your brain just kind of goes places.
Yeah, no, a lot of this is just circumstance and age and experience.
Oh God, I think the answers to this question aren't even necessarily like. It's not. Is the first thing that scared you a good movie? Like that's not the question. The question, is
right?
Like, the first thing that scared you, right?
Yeah, you just had that reaction to that.
Oh shit! I remember, and this is going way back. There used to be a show called DC Follies. Do you guys ever remember this?
The name sounds familiar.
It was Washington DC Follies. It was a political satire show with puppets.
Okay.
And they had Freddy Krueger on there.
Really?
Oh my God.
And I distinctly remember this because this was one that terrified me as a fucking kid, because we're just watching this show with my grandparents, not expecting to see Freddy Krueger show up. And it's like Richard Nixon or someone walking into a bar and Freddy pops up as a bartender just threatening to kill him.
Was it like
I remember as a kid.
Puppet?
It was Robert England. It was Freddy.
That would be terrifying.
It was
and
David
it scared
Warner,
the shit out of me.
He was a puppet. And he was like, "Give me my fucking role. I should have had this."
But I remember being terrified of that as a kid because I'm watching this, what should have been a safe show, right? That my grandparents watched, and suddenly I'm seeing Freddy Krueger. It also goes to show how much ingrained he was in pop culture back then too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Or reading a comic book and suddenly, oh shit, here's the Freddy 1-900 line. Or
Oh yeah.
some more. Our good friend Whitney, who did the Halloween podcast with us, The Sixth Sense as a kid terrified me, and The Ring as well. And Alyssa mentions a hanging feet scene that gave her the heebie-jeebies. Our friend Jerry says The Shining, which we talked about. Our friend Dot says The Grudge. The scene on the bus got her so bad that she had to flip to a random cable channel. And I'm not going to try to pronounce her name. Her name is Julie, but I can't pronounce her screen name. It's Blutvergeisen. There was an Are You Afraid of the Dark episode that scared me as a kid. I think it was called Watcher's Woods, but it had 3 old women ghosts. I think a scary face that would show up in the back of a tree. I couldn't quite place that one, but I used to watch a lot of Are You Afraid of the Dark. That was the highlight of Snick for me.
I just remember that scared me really bad as a kid. Do you remember Mr. Boogedy?
No, I don't. Oh, from the Ghostbusters?
No. It was a Disney family
What?
made one, but it's about this family that goes to this haunted house, and there's this guy who's kind of a Freddy Krueger knockoff.
No, I don't.
Okay, it's actually on Disney Plus of all things.
Yeah.
Now. Jamie, have you seen this?
I watched it for the first time like this past Halloween. I tried putting it on for the kids, and because of how dated it is, they were
Mhm.
like out, and I was watching it by
It's
myself.
horribly dated, but I tried watching it again.
It was good, though.
I watched it and I was like, yeah, this is really dated, but I could definitely see, like, as a kid watching it be like
Yeah.
really
One of the
creepy.
tough parts about having kids is like when there's somebody that you love from childhood, you think is a gem, and they watch it, and they're like, eh.
My
Yeah,
kids are
exactly.
my kids are really into Chip and Dale. I'm just gonna say it.
It's like what's funny is my daughter, when she watched The Thing for the first time,
Mhm.
she says, I'm gonna watch a thing. I'm like, okay. She goes, Dad, we gotta talk about The Thing. I was like, God damn it. Are you about to shit on one of the best movies ever made? She goes, that was like one of the best horror films I've ever seen in my life. I'm like, fucking thank Christ. Because I was about to make you fucking move out. So
No, I have an older child, and I had tried to have him watch The Thing. Must have been 2 years ago. So he was like 14, and he noped out at the dog scene.
like,
Mhm.
was he scared, or
on.
was he like, this is lame, Dad?
No, he was scared. Like, I think
Okay, good.
I think I caused his first like big horror freak out, because I think I really scared him bad with that one.
Because if not, we can talk about emancipation. Like, you can give him up to the courts. It's
Oh,
fine.
okay.
Okay.
So in 20 years, he's gonna have a podcast called like "What Fucked Me Up" and be like, "Well,
Mhm.
I was 14."
Yep.
My dad made me watch a thing. And then there's some talk about a cool character from Scooby-Doo that was scary back in the day. And Scooby-Doo did do some cool monster effects.
I love Scooby.
Oh yeah.
Oh, me too. Me too. God, I have such fond memories of watching that coming home from school in elementary school and watching the real Ghostbusters and Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
And the last but not least, our friend Dutch. As a kid, Chucky was the only character that ever gave me nightmares. As an adult, home invasion movies really crank up my anxiety.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
funny games,
I get that.
stuff like that. Yeah.
Well, like funny games. I don't know about you guys, but watching movies like that, I immediately go into the mode of what would I do in this
Mhm.
situation.
Yeah. I
And-
mean, you can't not. Yeah.
Yeah, and the whole scene in Funny Games, and the American version is basically a shot-for-shot remake of I think it's the same director too, isn't it?
Same director. Yeah.
it
That did
is,
both of them.
yeah.
But man, when they just like kill the son out of nowhere,
Ugh.
that scene is so rough to watch, because it's like, holy shit! Imagine like these people breaking your house and just killing your kid for fun in front of you. Like, how could you ever fucking come back from that? Even if you survive, how could you ever come back from that?
Yeah,
But that's
movies like
our,
that are so truly terrifying.
yeah.
I mean,
Um,
there's movies that are disturbing, like Martyrs. Those kind of things are like, it's beautiful, but yeah, it's totally disturbing. And those are on a different level than being scared.
I mean, the Purge movies, for what it's worth, like, I think are terrifying in today's modern
Mhm.
climate, because you could definitely see, like, certain people, certain flags in their truck getting really excited for some of that stuff. And it's I mean, hell, they did what they just busted a U-Haul of 31 fucking people ready to go rain some hell down at a pride parade this weekend. So like that stuff could really happen in real life. I think I think a lot of horror is kind of going towards that direction of like exploiting real life issues, which I think as you get older, those hit a little bit harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's not to say though, like a good haunted house movie will still scare the shit out of me. Like you brought The Changeling earlier, and like that movie to this day is I'm watching that at 3 p.m. with the lights on. Like I'm not watching that tonight before I go to bed.
All
Yep.
right. Well, thank you everyone who wrote in for that. We're going to move on to dad advice, and we took a long time with trivia, so we're trying to keep this a little bit short. But since we're all dads and it's Father's Day, I thought an interesting topic would be, how do you deal with a quote difficult child? It's a big theme in our episode, and obviously ignoring it is terrible, terrible advice.
Yeah.
And we actually took my son in to have him reevaluated for by developmental professional, and he kind of to update his diagnosis, since it's been a couple of years, and he was diagnosed as like low to middle range on the autism spectrum. But what he said was, he's very bright, very smart. It's just that he thinks and interacts on a different kind of wavelength as a lot of other people, and that's what usually leads to a lot of the behavioral issues that he has, is because he can't figure out how to articulate himself, but he really, really wants to. And as a parent, that is extremely difficult, and it gets me very, very frustrated But the thing that always helps me is knowing that I can take a step back in any situation, as long as he's not in physical danger, and take a breath and try to see the bigger picture, and disengage. That's okay,
Well,
because I think escalation just makes things worse.
Well, I think you bring up another interesting point too. That's kind of on the same wavelength. Is that you also talked about how you take care of yourself as a parent there,
Mm-hmm.
and which I think sometimes you have to do because you realize that this is if I get frustrated, if I get upset, if I get angry, it's not a good situation for me or him. So
Mm-hmm.
I need to take a step back and reevaluate my approach and reevaluate my feelings. And I think that's important too. Like, and I'll be honest, like I've gotten really fucking lucky that my kid just inherited my depression and anxiety. No big deal. But what's interesting though, I think we relate on a really good level because of that, because she knows like when she's in a bad mental place, I can relate to that because I'm the same way. And I can also tell her like, all right, we got to talk about this college loan shit tomorrow. Cause right now, like I'm ready to go jump off a building. And I don't mean to make that light of that, but people with depression know what I mean by that. Like, you're not going to do it, but God, you're just can't take one more thing that day. And she's like, all right, no big deal. We'll talk about it tomorrow. I think we gauge on that wavelength. So I think an important thing is just like I said, this fucking guy says ignore it. No, listen. I think you need to listen and be understanding and also be open with the struggles you have too. I think kids are smarter than we give them credit for. And I'm kind of talking more towards the later years, probably the teenage years. I think a lot of times, like especially when they're a little bit older, it's okay to be very vulnerable with your kids and let them know that you go through a lot of the same stuff they do. And I think they'll realize that, man, we're kind of in this battle together. Let's work together to fight it, as opposed to trying to fight each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's perfect advice. My 8-year-old is kind of similar to yours, Jason, where like he has a very hard time articulating sometimes how he feels because he's not really sure even how to articulate it. I think like a lot of it is he needs like he's one of those where like if you're going to do something you need to give him like an hour heads up, an hour notice, because if he has an idea in his head like I'm going to play with my friend here, but then 2 other friends show up, now he's pissed, because like this isn't what I had planned. I didn't want these people here, and he doesn't know how to tell them he doesn't want them there without hurting feelings. So then he just kind of acts out. And so our whole thing has just been really getting him to talk about his feelings and use his words instead of letting his emotions get the best of him. So I can relate to that 100%.
That's good. That's awesome.
Yeah, and another thing I think is really helpful is to share your coping mechanisms. So like my kids know that sometimes I'm going to go meditate, I'm just going to go sit in a quiet room, do some deep breathing, and sometimes they'll say I need to go sit in a quiet room for a little bit. They pick up on those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, my kids are really, really opposite. So I have two girls, 2 daughters. So my oldest is 7, my youngest is 4. My oldest is like incredibly affectionate, doesn't like to be alone for any moment of any day, needs kind of like constant stimulation. And my youngest is a little bit of a loner. She likes isolation. She likes to be kind of on her own, and she like emotionally communicates differently. So managing relationships between those 2 personalities, like the perspective is incredibly different. And like I, as an individual, I communicate kind of differently than both of them. But it wasn't really until we had our second child that I realized like, oh, like emotionally, both these kids communicate on different wavelengths and in different ways. So I need to be cognizant of like managing situations with them kind of differently, just based off of how they are as people. So I think the one size fits all approach is not, in my life, the right one. And people and kids need managed differently, and situations need managed differently based off of like who you're talking to and who you're dealing with. So
I think one common thing though that we all kind of just brought up though is we treat our kids like people and not like objects, not like property, not like, and I think that, probably for a lot of us, at least for me, I'm not gonna lie, I did not have a good childhood growing up. We definitely weren't treated as people. We were treated like we were just afterthoughts, and you're here to serve the parent or whatever. But I think a really good thing is everyone brought up is how we all like try to treat our kids like they're actual human beings, they're actual people. They have real thoughts, real emotions. They're not just there as, the old school children are seen in that herd mentality. Like I think we all talked about listening to our children and treating them like they're almost like equals. Like I think a lot of times if you just talk to kids like they're people, like they're adult, like they're humans and they're not idiots, like it goes a long way.
Yeah, I remember like the first I think one of the challenges of being a parent, I mean there are a lot, but the one that really stuck out to me was like managing other parents through like kids sports. Like I have children under 7.
Yeah.
And it's like, to be completely honest out loud, like who gives a fuck? They're under 10 years old and they're just here to have fun, right? Like no one should be taking any of this too seriously. But like I coach my daughter's baseball team, which is fun. But I didn't start doing that till this year. So like all the coaches prior, like the ones I feel like the kids connected best with were those that like would kneel down at the level of the kids and be like, hey, let's make eye contact and like let's just understand that like, hey, we're all just people here like trying to do this thing and trying to have some fun, and like we're going to communicate like as people to people and not like, hey, I'm this authority figure that's just gonna like march you around and tell you to do these things. Like this isn't the military. This is like a fun, enjoyable, kind of comfortable and safe environment. So I feel like the coaches that were best for those kids were the ones that were like, I'm going to take a knee and like get down and make eye contact with you and be, people along with you kind of thing.
I've seen doing jujitsu and seeing kids that do jujitsu and having seen their parents who don't even practice fucking sit there and yell at their kids after they lose a tournament or something. I can't fucking deal with that. Yeah, I'm just like, dude, they're fucking 9 years old. If they're a world champion, they're 30. No one's gonna remember the fact they lost 10 tournaments or 9 years old. And I don't see your ass out there fucking doing this. But I really like that.
Take it easy.
Yeah. Like the idea, and it was funny. It brought back when I played Little League. When I was 10, I had my first coach. I was kind of tough on us. He was tough on us, but he was never mean or unfair, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. He was kind of that good transition from like, hey, but he'd always tell us, he goes, I'm gonna be tough on you because I think you have all potential, but at the end of the day, if you're not having fun, like don't do this. Like have fun. This is about fun. You're fucking 10 years old. Yeah. Like you should. I love that mentality. I see so many times, like I think parents trying to live vicariously through their children because they didn't make it in the NFL, or so my kid's gonna be a college, whatever, and it's gonna become an NFL player to take out on their kids, and that's just so not cool. So I love your mentality there of like get down on the knee, talk to them on their level, and treat them like fucking humans, like people.
Yeah, completely agree, man.
All right. Well, I think that wraps up another episode. John and Jamie, thank you so much for joining us. Happy Father's Day. Where can people find you?
So we have a website, horrordads.com. We have a bunch of merch on there, so you can check us out there, and it also links to our Patreon. But our podcast can be found wherever you found this podcast. We're on Spotify, Apple Music, all the other like aggregate providers out there as well. Our podcast is available there, and on social media, our main channel is Instagram, but we are on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all at Horror Dads. So yeah, check us out, like us, find us, and let us know what you think of our episodes.
All right.
Definitely.
Next week, we will be reviewing the episode Showdown. We hope everyone had a wonderful Father's Day. We appreciate you for listening. We would really appreciate it if you would give us a rating or review on iTunes and rating on Spotify. And with that, we thank you for listening to Dads from the Crypt.
Happy Father's Day to everyone but Glenn Jacobs. Fuck you, Kane.
Follow Dads from the Crypt on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or I will follow you to the grave. No, seriously, you really should watch, but be careful what you ask for. You may get it.